Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to the 10th Annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. I am Jean Anderson with the South Central Library System, and I am moderating the Small and Mighty track today. Assisting me today is Joy Schwartz from the Winnifox Library System. Thank you so much, Joy, for helping out, and we are glad to have you here today. Our presenter for this session is Julie Elmore, Director of the Oakland City, Columbia Township Public Library in Indiana, and she will be discussing food in the library, reading and feeding the community. So Julie, whenever you are ready, go ahead and take it away.
All righty, I am ready. So thank you everybody for joining me this morning. I'm super excited to get to present to some new folks. So as mentioned, I am in Oakland City, Indiana, which is kind of in the southwestern toe, about 30 minutes from where Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky all come together and meet up. So, for a long time, we've kind of believed the whole, if you feed them, they'll come. And then COVID came, and then we really had to start looking for ways to try to help feed. And along the way, we just kind of found that food is kind of a really cool topic, and people were happy when we could help them with assistance, but also we kind of found ways to work it into literacy and education. And hopefully as soon as this last little wave of Omicron finishes up, we'll get back to being able to use it a little bit with building our social connections as well. So now we kind of always seem to take a look at how we can build food into our program and incorporate food. So this is some of the ways that we have done it in the past. We used to have, prior to COVID, we had a pretty active cookbook club. We did that a couple of different ways. Originally, we picked a theme, and it was really fun for a couple of years, but then we kind of ran out of themes. So originally we started off with for February, it was like red food. And then some months it would just be, Irish food or Italian food. And then we kind of morphed into picking one central cookbook that everybody would pick a recipe out of and then bring that recipe to share. Originally, you could come in and use any cookbook as long as it would fit the theme. That was a really fun project, and it did not cost us anything because the participants brought the food. Once a year, I had to maybe make an investment of some paper plates and some utensils, but that program pretty much ran itself, and it was fabulous. Our Books and Bites book club, it was formerly known as Books, Burgers, and Brews because we meet in a pub. There is no requirement that people purchase food there or drinks there, of course, but we still liked having the opportunity to gather socially around food while we discussed our book. Again, there's no cost to this program to the library, but I do say, I did the book club, and as director, I just kind of bought my own dinner. But if I was sending staff or something to the book club, I would make sure that the library picks up the tab for them to at least get, a soft drink and some appetizers or dinner or something, depending upon how the budget looks. We also liked to do some random one-off type programming. We did an Instapot program where down in the lower left picture there, that was just a friend of mine who every day for at least a month, she was posting something new that she cooked in her Instant Pot. So I called her up and said, why don't you just do a program for the library? So we borrowed a couple of them, and we did a program in the library on cooking with your Instant Pot because we had a lot of people that received them as gifts and had no clue what to do with them. So we just did a program and we had samples. So all that cost us was the groceries to do. Because again, we are a small library, my town's about 2,500 people. So the budget pretty much reflects a town of 2,500 people. So we try to keep things as reasonable as we can. We also did Pumpkin Spice Latte Day. I believe that is a national holiday. So we brought the ingredients for how to do that. And we bought a little $10 frother off of Amazon. And we had pumpkin spice lattes available and gave away the recipes for people all day long in the library. And that brought in a lot of teenagers. They were super excited to get free pumpkin spice lattes. So that one again was another one-off kind of a program that we did. And then we also did the benefits of chocolate and incorporated a healthy way of eating chocolate, which For the adult program, we really focused on the educational side and the heart benefits of darker chocolates, but then we also did little tastings of chocolates as well. And we found that a lot of people, you know, we would have 60, 70, 80, 90% cacao. And we found that people would have never tried that had we not, you know, nobody wants to buy a $5 bar of 85% cacao chocolate only to eat one piece and go, oh my gosh, I hate that, and throw a $5 bar in the trash. So, but because we had bought them and we broke them all up into, you know, 16 pieces or so, it became an affordable way for people to kind of taste a little bit of that darker chocolate to determine, you know, about how far up they were willing to go. So our extension agency did that program for us. And we followed up that one also with a kids version of that, which was a little less educational and maybe a little less healthy, but still wanted to incorporate ways of introducing that darker chocolate to kids. So we did things like we dipped potato chips, and we had different pieces of dark chocolate for them to apply. And again, our county extension agency ran that program because it was related to health. The Farmers to Family program that we did, this was during COVID, where they, I'm sure in your communities, you had some agencies that were doing boxes of giveaways of produce and dairy. We, of course, it was only COVID related, but our food bank sometimes winds up getting grants where they give away boxes of food. So because we have made a solid connection with our regional food bank, we reach out to them and let them know that whenever they get that opportunity again, we are always on standby at the ready to serve as a distribution site, because all that means is that we just have to provide volunteers to help unload the truck and help put them in people's trunks. So that was a great program. I was sad to see that one end. But again, we have been able to supplement with some other opportunities from our food bank whenever they get larger grants. We also held our strategic planning session with seniors. It was part of the Libraries Transforms community grant that we were lucky enough to receive. And I put this in because this is something, just this portion of it, you know, if you're looking at strategic plans, a lot of people don't necessarily sign up to come in and talk from the community about strategic planning, but we went at it as we catered a light lunch for them. We had chicken salad sandwiches on mini croissants and bags of Ruffles. We kind of altered some stuff because it was COVID, but it was super simple. But we had 31 people that attended our session to talk about what they wanted to see for specific to senior citizens coming in the library over the next year or two. So, you know, that kind of just reminded me that food definitely will bring in your audience. And I think that we spent, for 30 people, we had so much food left over that I know you could easily have done that for less than $100 in food for the 30 people that we wound up having. But, you know, in a town of 2,500 people, we were thrilled to get 31 people. And this slide is only in here because my teenage son dared to irritate me last night. So now I pulled out little kid pictures of him. But it's also a way that we thought we worked in our library as well about thinking of your themes with summer reading and ways to incorporate food at summer reading. We, the picture there of my kiddo when he was little bitty was, you know, a lot of times we would buy Oriental Trading type craft kits, and we flipped and started using some food. And this was a DIY cupcake decorating class that we did where we turned them into fish. I forget what the theme of the week was, but I know that a lot of people are doing the oceans summer reading thing this year. So this could easily work into your summer reading plans as well. It was, you know, we bought from the bakery, we just bought, I think we bought them from Sam's Club, unfrosted cupcakes. And we were able to talk them into just giving us 4 or 5 small bags of pre-colored frosting, and the kids could decorate their own. And then we used M&Ms as a way for them to decorate their fins for their cupcake. And I believe, if memory serves me right, those were those little sugar covered orange candies that we slid in. And so, you know, not always, the food doesn't always necessarily have to be super healthy in our programming, because to some kids, the opportunity to decorate their own cupcake and to have a cupcake with as much icing as they want on it is a huge treat for a kid that may not have those type of treats available at home for their, if they can't afford it, they don't know. So that's an easy thing that a parent is going to cut is, cupcakes off of the grocery bill. We also opted to really take a look at some investment pieces while we were doing our summer reading budgets. For instance, one year we focused on the theme food, pop open a good book. So we bought a popcorn popper. That popcorn popper is probably 8 or 9 years old now, and we still crank that baby up, not as much during COVID, but pretty much almost every summer reading after that, the kids get take home bags of popcorn. And when the last, not the COVID type recessions, but I believe it was back, like around 2010 was when the automotive industry was hurting and struggling. And we had a lot of kids in here, we knew that popcorn was probably what they were eating all afternoon. So we focused on, rather than just giving them like a free ice cream cone, we went with trying to build in some budget pieces that were reusable and longer terms. Another year we did reading is sweet. So we built into our budget a cotton candy machine. So my library has a cotton candy machine that every now and again we break out, and we send the kids home with cotton candy because we can. Another thing too, is as far as like when you're looking at your summer programming, and I know there's scads of webinars and I won't go into the details about the summer reading or the summer food service program where you can have meals at your library. I did want to throw out something though, because what we did was, rather than taking on the entire meal component where we were going to have to deal with more preparing and having way more things to store, plus our local elementary school was doing some summer meal services, we instead worked with our local food bank that was in charge of that program for the region, and we did the snack component. So if the idea of doing a meal component is a little overwhelming to you, take a look and see if they have the snack opportunity, because the snacks were things like a bagel and cream cheese. Both of them were prepackaged, crackers and cheese. So it wasn't requiring a lot of storage. It didn't require a lot of assembly. They were just in a juice, like we had a refrigerator full of juice. So you have access to a refrigerator. That's an opportunity for you to provide summer snacks. And quite honestly, a lot of times the snacks were pretty darned close to what my kids would have had for lunch anyway. It is designed for low-income children, but our district would not have qualified for every child to receive the free food, because some of our outlying out in the rural areas, where the bigger farmers were, their income wasn't low enough to really bring down the entire school's ratio of free and reduced. So what we did instead was we did the 6-block radius of the library. And that is a way that if your library is located in a poor section of town, even if your whole community wouldn't qualify, as long as your building is in the poorer part of town, that's an opportunity as well to qualify for that program. And that's what we did. This program here is one I wanted to go in a little bit more detail over. It doesn't cost us anything. It does cost us a little bit of time with paperwork, but we partner with our regional food bank to be a distribution site for the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. It is specific for seniors. I did find on the Wisconsin's DHS website, that right there took you to a link of regional partners in the area that handle this program. And what it is they receive seniors that are over the age of 60 that live in your area and qualify income-wise. I believe for a couple, if they have to earn under $1,868 a month to qualify is the magic number. But they receive a box. The food comes to the library. The truck comes and drops it off here, and then we are the distribution site for that. Every month they get, it's probably a solid 25, 30-pound box of food. There's always a jug of juice in there. There is always some sort of pasta. There is some sort of a canned protein, some sort of a shelf-stable milk, and then they get like a 2 or 3 pound brick of whatever the government's version of Velveeta is, but it's a processed cheese food that they get. So that's available. And it was available here, but there was no place in our county that served as a distribution site. So we said, why not us? So we did. The paperwork end, don't let it overwhelm you. It's not difficult. You truthfully are signing off the states that you saw their income, and then we submit it to the partners at the food bank, and they are actually the ones who say yes or no. We get them enrolled on the program, and then every month we just call them and say, hey, your box is in, and then we are responsible for verifying that they are the person that picked it up or their proxy, and mark the sheet off and fax the sheet back to them at the end of the month. Super simple program. About the only problems that we've really faced with it, we've had some people that have canceled it because it was too much food for just one person, they felt. And sometimes convincing your elders that, you know, they think that maybe they're taking it away from somebody who needs it a little bit more. But overall, I highly recommend that you take a look at this project. We've been doing it for several years now. During COVID, I know during COVID, it became a lifeline for a lot of people. And if you can't make the commitment for being a distribution site, at a minimum, check and see if you have a regional distribution site, and then get with them and see if maybe you couldn't partner to have a sign-up day at your library, just to get people signed up for the program. And our initial sign-up day, we had 15 people that came in to apply. And our numbers every month have kind of fluctuated somewhere between 10 and 20 people participating at any one time. So that's our senior food box program that we participate in.
Julie,
yeah,
before you move on, and actually I think it's back one slide, Christina had a question about how did you narrow down the income levels of the 6-block radius of the library?
That is actually, oh gosh, it's been a minute since I did that. It's actually like a census block track. And when you watch some of the webinars that fall under the summer feeding program, they will talk about it, but they'll blink really quick, and it's in the census data. I honestly, I wish that I could remember that far back, but I do know that it exists. So if they tell you no on the first chance, just go, well, what about our 6-block radius? And they should know.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So my next program, oh my gosh, I love this program. I could talk about this program all day long. This is probably the best thing that we have done ever. And like all great ideas in library land, I have to give credit to the original person who thought of it, because I stole it. I had participated in the Big Talk for Small Libraries last year when I was watching it. And a lady by the name of Kate Kosiar from Cranberry Lake, New York, she was talking about addressing poverty through take-home kits. And she did a session, and it was a quick session that was not only focused on food, but they did things like they focused on hygiene one week and sent home little bottles of children's shampoo and things of that nature. And from that spawned morphing into our Read and Feed program. It was designed for kids 4 to 8. It was a traditional story time with a craft. Then we had books, we had some songs. I mean, y'all do story time, y'all know. But what made it super special was at the end of story time, they all went home with the ingredients. During the original Read and Feed, they went home with the ingredients to make a simple supper that night with or for their family. Then we also, that was so much fun that we then morphed into the month of December. We did Read and Feed Baking Edition. So they again went home with the ideas and with the recipes for how to bake something that matched our theme for the week. And this program, of course, we held it during COVID, so it's not quite the numbers we hoped for, but our total cost came in under $300. Now, I preface this with the fact that I cannot keep my slides up with the rate of inflation right now. So it may be a little bit more for you guys. But we did the 6-week dinner program, and then we did a 4-week baking program. Through the course of them, it was different people that participated, but we had 6 different families. Between them, there was 11 kids. The crafts were super simple. Up in the upper right corner, that was our stone soup or our soup week theme. And we gave the kids our scrap piles of construction paper, and they did torn paper art. The only thing we did was the soup kettle that we had cut out for them. They glued that on, and then they could tear any of the paper into vegetable shapes to put into their soup. Then we had a taco week, and down in the lower left corner, you'll see all we did was we gave them some tan colored circle paper, or paper that we'd cut into circles. And then the rest was scrap paper that we ran through our shredder and let them have create their own tacos as their take home craft for that week. So our craft supplies were truthfully nothing. One week we did have to buy a pack of ornaments during cupcake week for baking edition, because we did glue the ornament into a cupcake liner, and then we did puffy paint to decorate it and decorated it as a cupcake. But other than that, I don't think that we bought a craft supply at all for this project. We used what we had: paper, craft sticks, felt, craft foam, whatever was in the closet and we could make a craft out of, we did, because we wanted to keep all of the money towards the food. I will say that if money is a barrier for you, if you have any sort of way of cooking in your library, such as air fryers or hot plates or something, you could easily change this program to where you cook with the kids in the room, and then the kids are just sampling, so that you're, instead of sending home, what we tried was for like enough for 4 servings per bag that went home. You would only be providing one sampling for a child, so that you could cut your costs way down if you needed to. And we also kept the food costs controlled, because siblings, only one food kit went home per family. Now, if you had somebody that had a really large family, then you would, maybe need to send them home with 2. But when we did earlier, the lady was talking about her wake up tacos. We did Texas breakfast tacos one week. So same concept, but it was enough to feed a family of 4. We didn't really feel that we needed to send home 2 dozen eggs, 2 pounds of meat, et cetera, et cetera. So we just kind of focused it on making it for servings of 4s. And these were 2 of our recipes that they went home with. The one on the left was from our baking edition. We did the donuts that you could fry, like when you take a can of biscuits and you fry them. And then we also learned, though, one of the kids was really curious, and the mom wasn't really a big fan of deep frying anything. So the kids were curious about a different way, and they were like, well, could we bake them? Could we do this? And one of the kids said, could we put them in an air fryer? And so she did. And so it was kind of fun, because you could see the kids getting curious about the process of cooking. And we learned that you can, in fact, make those lovely biscuit donuts in your air fryer, and then you cut all the oil out. So for the one on the right, when we did the breakfast tacos, that was our taco week. And we kind of started altering that as the price of food was starting to jump. Originally, we were going to do beef tacos, and then we started pricing ground beef and cheese and everything else. And we dialed it back to doing breakfast tacos, because it was a good way to get a lot of protein to them at a more reasonable cost. And so for that program, we did of course, we read Dragons Love Tacos. We read This Is a Taco. And then we sent the kids home, as you could see. Oh, I meant to show it in the earlier picture, but that bottom right picture there is one of our participants taking home all of her groceries that she had. And we pretty much sent home every ingredient with them. And this is what it looks like. This picture right here is, this slide right here, I probably will eventually print out and frame and hang in my office, because I love this so much. This slide to me is the picture of success. These kids had so much pride. They were so happy to be cooking and providing for their family, and they got to sit down and share with their family what they made. Our original budget was $540 that we received as a grant. We did wind up not using, as you see, for all 10 weeks, we only used around 300. So we are looking at, in the spring, I've got kind of a toss up between doing maybe a 4-week around the world read and feed program, where we'll focus on foods from different countries. We're also looking at maybe doing like a no cook version for after school snacks in the spring. And if I land the right funder, maybe I'll do both. But probably my biggest tip out of this one, seriously, pictures, pictures, pictures. I was begging my parents. I was like, take pictures of everything. And this truly is a you can't capture on when you're doing a funding report the kid's pride, the pride that they took, but oh my gosh, that kid with the boy holding the plate of pancakes, if that doesn't show off his pride, I don't know what does. So and I mean, everybody knows pride, pictures of kids sell your social media posts. So we got lots of amazing PR. We picked up at least 2 new library card holders during this program. And on top of that, the community foundation that funded this was so impressed with this project that they're asking me to come in and speak about it to their membership. And when I put in for a program for seniors for later this year, I asked them to cover $1,500 of a $2,500 program, and they were so impressed with this program that they actually funded all $2,500 of our next upcoming program. So, and aside from it just being, tons of fun for the kids, it was a big literacy opportunity. They went home and they were reading their recipes, and they were doing STEM because they were reading the math and the fractions and the science of putting food together. And it was great. But our biggest success that we learned during this project was that we were addressing food insecurity without being in your face and making parents feel like we were giving them a charity case. We did wind up having to do some surveys because it was part of a grant. And one of those questions was, did this program meet any food insecurity needs in your household? And half of them had said, yeah, it did. So it was amazing to be able to help without making, you could give with some dignity. You could, if that makes sense. And I'm sorry, not only give with dignity, they were able to receive with some dignity is more of what I meant to say. So, this project here, I absolutely love. Later in the program we'll share, but I do have the link to our entire planning sheet for the books that we did, the food that we did, the recipes that we did, and the crafts that we did, all on a Google spreadsheet, and we will share the link with you later in the session as well, mainly because I love this program and I want everybody to do it. The next thing that I wanted to share in a little bit more detail with you is we have a tower garden growing in our library. For those of you who are unfamiliar with a tower garden, it is an indoor, soil-free, aeroponic vertical garden. And it is, it's super cool. I'm not even gonna lie. It has a 20-gallon tank that has a pump that has a timer on it. So the water cycles up through the pump to the top of the tower, and then it kind of rains down gently. But what's really cool is because there's no soil, the water and the minerals go straight to the plant's roots. So there's a whole different science and technology component on this. We actually wrote an LSTA grant for this. I hit my state coordinator up and said, hey, just because it's a technology grant, does it have to relate to a computer? And they said, no. And I said, well, there's this cool technology. And so they told me to write the grant. And it also helped that it was a relatively small ask. The entire project was, around $1,500. And for that, I bought more stuff than what I need. I bought a year's worth of supplies. I bought the dolly. Buy the dolly. The dolly is not a frivolous expense. It lets you move it on wheels, and 20 gallons of water is very heavy. We did buy the cages because hopefully in the spring, we plan on maybe taking this outside and doing some plants that grow better outside, like tomatoes and things that have your flowering type vegetables. So we also were able to link this program to a lot of this project, I should say, to a lot of other programs. So for story time, we did story times about gardens, and then I wowed the kids with, hey, guess what? This is a garden that you've never seen before. And we did this at the school, and I showed them pictures, and then we gave them little coupons that were tasting coupons that they could come into the library and they could taste anything that was growing on the garden. So that was a really fun way of getting it into the kids' hands. We did during our read and feed program, one of our weeks was pizza. So of course we gave them basil and oregano that was growing out of the tower at the time. For soup week, we gave them arugula because I let them taste straight arugula, and there's not too many people that really enjoy straight arugula because it's pretty peppery. But I told them, now what if you were putting that into your soup and it gave you some peppery flavoring in your soup? And so we sent them home with arugula to put into their soup. So that was something that they would not normally put into their soup, but it expanded their palate a little bit. And, you know, we've had kids come in and it's so funny to see, it's funny to see their wonder, but it's also a little bit, kind of takes you back a little bit because they're like, hey, can I taste the grass? And I'm like, oh, honey, that's lettuce, that's not grass, but yes, we can try some of it. And it's an opportunity to educate. And it's amazing how many little kids think lettuce only comes in a bag. So, and already cut because they've never seen the whole leaf, the whole leaves from bib lettuce. So, and then the adults, they just think it's super cool. We have them come in all the time and we give away anything that's growing. So if somebody comes in, we have a lady that comes in every other week and picks up an entire bag of gourmet lettuce, bib lettuce, and arugula. And now we have some chard growing. So we toss that in and it's kind of like a spring mix that she would buy at the grocery store. It's amazing how much longer this stuff lasts than what they buy in the grocery store. And so we're all the time putting out on Facebook, hey, we're trimming up the garden, come in and get your herbs or whatever. And the grocery store doesn't seem to mind because it's all different stuff. Our grocery store is too small to really carry fresh herbs. So we haven't found that, we've irritated anybody. And then the summer gardeners, the big gardeners, they really love in the fact during the wintertime that they can come in and pick up some fresh vegetables when they come in. So that is our tower garden. I will not lie, there is a little bit of work involved in it. It's not incredibly overwhelming, but every week I do, I have to pour a few gallons of water in. I do have to add the minerals to it. And because it's all contained in one pot, it's kind of like the whole fish tank thing where you got to make sure the pH is right. And then sometimes you just got to get in and trim the roots. I have not had to do this part yet, but I do anticipate in the spring, we will pull everything out of the tower, disconnect it, kind of break it down to parade rest, and then we'll clean it up because as the minerals kind of sit in that plastic, a couple times a year, you are going to need to break it apart, give it kind of a bath and put it back together again. But the other thing too is the learning curve on this one was we're having some plants that are now bolting. So they're at the end of their life cycle and they need to be pulled. And we weren't exactly sure when to start the next round of seeds. So we're still kind of in a little bit of a learning curve for when to plant the seeds so that we can have a seamless transition of food. But I would imagine really and truthfully, anybody who plants in gardens has that same thing. We also used it as an opportunity to create some big boards that stand over by the garden itself. And it kind of discusses what aeroponic garden is, how it works. And then the how watch it grow part was really cool because it was amazing how fast when they went from seedlings into the tower and started receiving the direct nutrition straight to their roots, the rapid rate of growth was just really cool. Even the gardeners in town were like, that's pretty cool. And also I don't have it on this slide, but we have done some pictures because you can just pull the roots straight back out of these little pods. And that's been really neat to show the kids when I pull the lettuce roots out and they're, a foot long or whatever, and the kids can actually see what the roots look like rather than just knowing that they're down in the dirt. This slide here, again, like I said, pictures sell your stories. And this is probably my best money shot that we have of our tower garden, because these were our read and feed kids that were in there and we were giving them things to take home with their dinner. We do keep track of like all the questions and how many tastings we give away. And it is by far the most asked about thing in our building. Again, we started it in September. We've had well over 100 reference questions, whether we've explained the process, whether people are asking what that is. And we've done, as far as harvesting, we've given away 75 tastings, which could be anything from somebody that said, hey, what does a garlic chive taste like, to can I take a whole bag of greens home? So I will say that my biggest regret in doing this grant was because because it was such a small ask, I really wish that I would have doubled the ask and got 2, because then right now we can kind of keep up with our patrons' requests on it. I feel like if we had 2, we would really be able to help contribute to the local food pantry a little bit more and maybe get people who would not come into the library to be able to receive some of what's grown locally as well. So I would say that if I was to do the grant again, it's not that huge of an ask to go from 1,500 to 3,000. I think I would have loved to have bought 2. And oh, I was going to say too, some of the things that we've grown on here, we grow lettuce, we grow bib lettuce. We do, I have romaine planted right now. We have chard, we have arugula, we have thyme, dill. The dill, for some reason, boy, once the patrons get a hold of the dill, we can't keep up with the dill. We have cilantro, that's probably going to be gone come Super Bowl weekend. And you know, there's a lot in there. We did not grow anything that was flowering because of the need for pollination. Now I'm studying a little bit more about how to grow those indoors, but we could take the LED lights off of this and the unit that we bought could go indoor, outdoor. We do have a closed in patio that we are considering doing some flowering plants outside in the summer. So, you know, now we got to talk about money, and I tried to share a little bit along the way, but, you know, I figured that it wouldn't hurt to have its own little section. So again, the food bank has funded a lot of our programs. Of course, it's not necessarily their money that's funding the program, but we're partnered with them to serve as the distribution sites for these projects. Also, I know that our regional food bank helps support the school's backpack programs. So I do know if you wanted to do something really big and long lasting, you could also partner with the food bank at purchasing food at a much lower rate. I have not done a lot of that yet, but that is on my radar that it can be done. Our community foundation, again, they funded our Read and Feed program, and then the program that they overfunded, which is our upcoming Lunch and Learn for senior citizens. So during that session, we plan on doing, it's a 6-week series where we will serve soup and sandwiches, and we will do a different topic. We were going to contract with a lawyer to come in and do some estate planning 1 week. 1 week we are going to do a craft. 1 week we are going to do some armchair traveling and talk about, we're going to use the, I forget the name of it. It's CLIC, C-L-I-C, where they do programs, virtual programs from museums that are around the country. We've done a few in the past where we traveled to like Monticello and toured Jefferson's Monticello. We're going to do a travel program where we're also going to feed them lunch at that as well. There are tons of gardening grants out there that can be easily found, especially if you're going to go down the road of any community gardening. Be sure to take a look at them. Our LSTA grants, again, if you can link it to technology, depending upon what your state's requirements are for LSTA requests, sometimes it's just a matter of thinking outside of the box and recognizing that technology can exist with food. So don't be afraid to reach out to your coordinators if you have a wild and crazy idea. It may not be your first choice for a food grant, but you know, it was effective when it came down to buying a tower garden for us. And so, you know, don't be afraid to get unique and ask. And if you're not asking for money from your community foundation, I'm going to back up just a minute. I really implore you to do so, because that's their entire purpose. They exist to share and give money. So make sure that you are asking for some of it. Walmart, I know that a lot of people sometimes are like, well, I don't have a Walmart in my town, but Walmart and Sam's Club and a lot of those larger superstores, they are broken down by region. So don't think just because you don't have one in your town that you cannot still apply for some community good money from the closest one to you. Walmart loves to fund education stuff and community-minded stuff. And, you know, sometimes we kind of get into a rut on who we ask to supply our prizes, where, you know, we kind of think, oh, the local ice cream shop and give a free ice cream cone. We also need to think maybe just a little bit bigger and go after some of that other money that's out there that is designed to be spent more regionally, but seems to wind up often only going to the places that are in their towns. And a lot of times that's because people that are out of town don't ask for it. Your patrons shop there, make them spread the love to y'all. Same thing with banks. You know, banks are kind of regional as well. We don't necessarily think to go to them for summer reading because they may not have that actual little prize, but they'll often give you some cash to purchase stuff with. So if you wanted to do something with them, I've gone to the bank and said, hey, I want to provide, you know, these supplies so that the kids can cook this can you fund that? And as long as you can link it back to education, they generally and keep the ask low in our bank case, they'll drop $100 without thinking twice. Aldi's, if you have, and I believe Wisconsin, I looked, I know there's some Aldi's at least in parts of Wisconsin. They have a Smart Kids grant. I'm going after that this summer. I want to see if they can fund a cooking club. Their website, I wrote this or I typed this one up. Let me see. Their website says that they want to partner with groups that make a positive impact on our kids' health and well-being, food insecurity, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So getting food into kids' hands is their purpose. So I think that if you wanted to go after some read and feed money, Aldi's would be an excellent place to start. Utilities and Dollar General. Dollar General has very specific summer reading grants, and the utility companies, they love to fund anything linked to education. As I was once told by somebody who worked for a utility provider, if you can link it to education, a lot of times they will fund it because the higher educated a person is, the higher power consumption user they are. So that was a little pro tip. And after that, I totally now always ask our utilities company for a donation to our summer reading fund. And that's how I funded our popcorn popper. It was because I went after them as a larger generic cash donation. I was able to fund the equipment that was used during summer reading. And again, same thing with our cotton candy machine. That's how we funded those, was by linking them straight to our theme. So another thing too that we also use, and I'll cover it in a minute, but while it's on my brain, also part of that budget, then when we ask for just the cash donations, we build a lot of our own in-house prizes that are related to food, and we do candy bouquets where you make a little bouquet of candy that's attached to like a soda bottle or something. Oh my gosh, we did one as a lark, and I was kind of light on prizes that year. I was like, oh, we'll throw one of these together. Oh my goodness, those kids went crazy for those. They loved that. They were always trying to win one of those. We started using them as like a weekly attendee prize, door prize type thing. Because if their family doesn't have a lot of disposable income, that is a huge treat for those kids to get, a big variety of candy. So honestly, I think that they're probably going to be turned into a how-to for one of our adult craft nights coming up later this year as well. Which now takes me to what is coming. This is our plans for 2022. And as with every plan right now, COVID pending, we are doing, again, I talked about our cooking around the world from our read and feed program, our senior lunch and learns coming. Also from our strategic planning with our seniors, we learned that they are in desperate need for cooking for one or one and two, maybe, because, if they're a widow or a widower and cooking, a lot of people spent their whole lives cooking for their entire family. Now they're cooking for one or two. They find that it's just often easier to not cook. So we plan on doing some cooking for one. We have a large amount of diabetics in our community, so we're going to touch on some low carb cooking. Air fryers, because we're in that moment right now with the air fryer that we were in a few years ago with the Instant Pot, where a lot of people got them for Christmas and they got them for their parents for Christmas, and their parents are like, great, and it's sitting on their counter and they don't use it because they don't know how to use it. A neighboring library did a holiday candy making party earlier in the year. I am totally going to steal that plan and hopefully steal her presenter to make one for us. Our No Cook Cooking Club, like I said, I'm going after some Aldi's money for that. The Seedling Starter Program, we thought we were ready to do a seed library for people, and we decided that we were not, but we have those LEDs all over our tower garden, and we have excess seeds from the things that we've planted. So we're just going to plant seeds and we're going to start them, and then we're going to start them in-house in February, and we're just going to pass them out to anybody that wants to do a little container gardening at their own house as well. For summer reading, we're doing the camping theme, so there's totally going to be a s'mores day at this library. We were looking at some partnerships. We found out last night that we did not get the grant we were going after for a pollinator partnership, but we're still looking at maybe bringing in one of the speakers that we had planned for a larger program to talk about the importance of being sure that you plant some native plants around your gardens to help your gardens grow, because you need to promote the pollinators coming. And it didn't make my list, but I just saw this session a couple of days ago, actually, where they were using spices to spark memories and discussion about cultural cooking. Part of our strategic plan meeting found that there was an interest in learning how to become a better storyteller and creating ways for people to share their stories of their younger years, so to say, with their future generations. So kind of in the back of my head, I have this storytelling and oral history project brewing, but I'm going to also steal a little bit from that presentation on spices, where I want to maybe use some spices, maybe use some food, so that if we're talking about cinnamon and what memory does that spark, and does that take you back to your childhood, and maybe a recipe or something that they could share with a future generation about what that scent meant to them. Then we're also going to probably throw in some food. If to a certain generation, root beer floats bring back a huge memory. So we want to get people talking about their memories and sharing their stories a little bit better. So it's coming soon. It's not completely fleshed out, but it's coming. And that's kind of an idea of, like I said, we are constantly thinking, oh, hey, that's a cool program. And how can we maybe throw something more food into it? Because we truly have found that if you feed them, they come. You know, we've said it in libraries for years. It's true. If you feed them, they'll show up. But again, I don't want anybody to be discouraged thinking that you have to have a lot of funds for these projects, or that you have to get a grant. You can bring the cost down as you need to. Instead of doing a series on air frying cooking, you may do one air fryer cooking program, and maybe you don't have to go buy the air fryers. Maybe you have a couple friends in town that would loan you the air fryers. So there's a way of kind of bringing it down to whatever your budget is. I know that our track is small and mighty. That's what small and mighty does. We improvise, we adapt, we overcome, and that most assuredly is true for improvising and adapting our budget to make projects work. So if I haven't lost you yet, to wrap up, these are our links to our read and feed plans if anybody wants them, and I believe somebody will share that in the chat. Please feel free to use them as a springboard and develop your own program for it, but we totally wanted to make sure that you were able to kind of get a vibe for what we did, because I cannot speak enough about that program. I can't speak enough about the parents' love of this program, and the fact that we had one little boy that constantly was jonesing for when was library day. And it's really funny because he was the one who, I felt bad for mom. Mom had scheduled a dental appointment on the same day as library day, so he lost library day. And so we wound up bagging everything up for him and put it as a little take and make home kit for him, and even the books from story time. And he made his mom sing the songs, read the books, and do the entire program at home. So I know that these kids were loving this. That bottom picture there, that was our volunteers that did our read and feed, our drive-through food box delivery with the Farmers to Family program. We had 350 boxes unloaded and in car trunks in less than 45 minutes. So there's clearly a need. The drive-through thing works amazingly well. I highly recommend that if you reach out to your food bank and see if there's a way. All it cost me was the time to round up those volunteers. And then I just really like that close-up shot of our tower garden, because that's our cilantro that was coming in hard and heavy. And like I said, by Super Bowl weekend, that'll all be gone. But it's fun to come in and see what's growing and to have that bright spot of green in the library. And even just the sounds of the water running through it are soothing. So, and then again, the top portion, that's our candy bouquets that we make. I was stunned that the kids were they were enthralled, and all you do is hot glue the candy onto bamboo skewers. And then you take a pool noodle slice and stick it over top of your soda bottle, and then just plug and play and glue on some ribbon. We did 6 of them for $35. So we got 6 prizes for $35. That's a pretty good deal, I think. I do also want to share, though, just a couple things to keep in mind, that if you're incorporating food as a prize or as a learning tool, or it's just something that you're giving away, I can't say it enough. Food is not a craft supply to people that don't have enough food. So please, whatever food you are using as a supply, make sure that it remains in an edible fashion. So for instance, our candy bouquet was, we make this as an adult program. You know, yes, we are using food as a supply, but at the end of that, they can still unwrap and unpack that and eat that if they want. I'm referring more towards, you know, there was a run where people would cut potatoes and make painting stamps out of potatoes, and you know, gluing the noodles onto the letter N for the, you know, for a preschool type program. If they don't have enough food, we really do not want to model how to waste food. So I do implore anybody that as they think and develop programming in the future, that they don't, that they keep that in mind. And again, incorporating the food, like I said it earlier, and I mean it, it was what we have learned through this process was that people are able to receive with some dignity without feeling that they're getting a handout. Those families got dinner provided to them, yes, but there was a little bit of work component to it, right? They came to the story time and it matched the story time, and then they had to go home and cook it together as a family and talk about the cooking process. And then we would follow up the next week about how they, you know, how they managed to chop something, or, you know, how they did this or how they did that. And so it became part of the program rather than just an act of charity of here's your food in a bag and we don't really care what you do with it. It was a continuation of the program. And, you know, we definitely utilize food in a lot of different ways here. And sometimes it's just socially, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like our lunch and learns is pretty much going to be food for social. But a lot of times keep in mind that it is easy to link to our core works of literacy and STEM. When you're talking recipes, you're talking, you know, math and reading right out of the gate. And, you know, Read and Feed totally illustrated that for us. And our tower garden is all science and technology. That's library land. So anyways, I know that was a lot. Thank you very much for sticking with me, and hopefully I kept it organized. I told Jean earlier, my brain sometimes runs in a lot of different directions. So hopefully that was semi-organized for you. And hopefully I've inspired you to maybe think at food a little bit differently and maybe branch out and incorporate some food. And if there's some time left, I think we got a couple minutes, if there's any burning questions that anybody has, and then I will definitely be happy to have y'all email me or shoot us a message through Facebook or anything. Call me if you need to. I'm always happy to talk food.
Thanks, Julie. We do have a couple questions. The first one is from Christina. She says, Julie, we've all had programs planned and have had to pivot due to COVID. Do you have ideas how you might change up your planned programs if you can't have in-person programs?
Sure. Read and Feed was rescheduled a couple of times, and we pushed it back. I think we did wind up having to push our start back for Read and Feed. But you know, our Read and Feed could just as easily become a take and make project, because the core thing that they did was they were taking it home to cook. So they could still pick up their supplies and go home and cook. Our Lunch and Learn, I am not gonna lie, our Lunch and Learn, we're kind of slow rolling on that one. And the foundation was all excited for us to get moving. And then, you know, our entire state went red for the way that they categorize transmission rates in the state. And so I told them, I said, honestly, I said, we're going to slow that back. But, you know, I do recognize that, you know, COVID is a thing. So we did, especially with Read and Feed, if they couldn't make it, we had a couple that would call and they're like, hey, I can't come, my kid's quarantined or whatever. We have lockers outside that patrons can still swing by and pick things up, or if you have curbside service, we would package the whole plan. They just couldn't pick it up until after we were, you know, after the program was done. So Read and Feed was on Monday. They couldn't get the books from Storytime and stuff until Tuesday. And we found that almost everything that we do can still be moved somewhat. We wound up having our strategic plan meeting. We originally booked it for a very large community center where pretty much we could have one person per every other table just about if we needed to. And then the day beforehand, they called us and said that there was a sewer issue. And if we were to use the building, we could have no running water and no bathrooms. And I thought 30 seniors, no bathrooms, 2 hours, no water, no way. So we pivoted that in the library and we altered it to where we closed the library proper so that we could spread people out far enough in the library and for those 2 hours. And instead of having a buffet or, having it a little bit more packaged that way, we pre-made all the plates so that we could put them on there so that people were spread out a little bit more. So we pivot as we can, but that's what Small and Mighty does, right?
Yes, that is exactly what we do. I am seeing tons and tons of great comments. So, thanking you and all of the ideas and all the notes and whatnot from the session. Joy, I don't think I missed any other questions. Did you see any? If you do have any last minute questions, we do have a couple minutes left. So, or if you have anything you would like to share, let us know.
I think you got all the questions, Jean.
Okay, thank you. I thought I had gotten them all. So, all right, we'll give everyone just another minute or so to type in their questions. So I'll do my my closing here. Just 1 second. I'll get over to that page in my notes. So let me put this back up. All right. All right. As I mentioned, we did record. Oops, I'll turn my video back on. Sorry. As I mentioned, we did record today's program and along with the slides, and we will also include the link that Julie shared with us for the read and feed supply list in your program plan, right? Is that what, am I getting that right, Julie?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Yes, we'll include that as well. So thank you so much, Julie, for that great session.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for asking me.
Yes, this was so much fun. A great way to start the day. And as a couple of people mentioned in the beginning, I have a salad for lunch, but I kind of want more.
Yeah, I'm ready to go dig the cotton candy maker back out. I'm not joking.
So there will be a short survey that will show up at the end of the webinar and will also be sent to your email later. We really appreciate your feedback. Our next session in this track is Capturing Your Community with Joan Weaver and begins at 10:30 Central Time. We hope to see you there. And if not, have a great rest of your day.